Before I tell you about the trials or the sufferings or the sorrow of young Werther, I guess it's been translated differently in different places, the title, as an example of the literally me, what's become known as the literally me genre. I wanted to talk a little today about what I witnessed when I tuned in and watched a bit of what I'm told is has been the most watched event ever in history. Supposedly, and I mean, unless they're just blowing smoke up our collective, you know what, which is possible. But I don't know what their motivation for that would be. But anyway, if they're telling us the truth, what they say is that up to 4 billion people watched this event, which was the Queen's funeral, the Queen of England, Queen Elizabeth II. And that's pretty incredible that it was watched by, simply the fact that it was watched by that many people. I guess that, the fact that she was queen for such a long period of time, for the better part of a century, and thus became very well known, and the fact that mass communication is more prevalent around the world. More people have access to television or the internet, for better or for worse. That's the way it is now. And because, the Commonwealth spans several countries across the world, the sun never sets on the British Commonwealth, not Empire anymore. Because of that, because of all of these things, and I guess because of the interest generated by royalty, the interest generated by, the pomp of an occasion like this. I mean, I think people are drawn to these kinds of things, even the ones who just think it's all bollocks. I think, deep down inside of us, we have a desire for rightful, ordered rule, let's just say, and for the attendant rituals that come with it. And there's nothing wrong with having that desire, or for having that longing in our hearts, because that's, I believe, how we were made. Heaven is a monarchy. Heaven is not a democracy. So, in a sense, even if we've got a very depraved monarchy, as I and many others believe the Windsors are, it's a monarchy that's got a lot of problems with it, and some really shady characters, to say the least. Even if the worst things you've heard are true, even if they're a bunch of lizard vampires, I don't know how you could be both, but if they're just some other species that's not human, that's just sociopathic, monsters who feed on the blood of the innocent. Even if all of that is true, if the worst thing you can imagine about the royals is true, and I'm not saying it isn't, I'm not dismissing that it could be. I don't know. I know enough to know that there's something is rotten in the state of the UK. It's particularly with regard to its royal family, but I don't know. There's a wide spectrum from just deeply corrupt human beings to alien lizard blood sucking freaks. regardless of all of that, regardless of where you stand, or maybe you're a pro-monarchist. Maybe even though you acknowledge the problems, that are there, you maybe you think that Elizabeth was a good woman who lived out her years, in a devout love for her people, doing what she felt was best for her nation at all times, as its monarch. Regardless of where you stand on any of that, I think there is something that draws our eyes to these kinds of rituals. This putting to the grave. This taking the queen, the body that she occupied while she was alive, taking her to her body's final resting place. There's something about that intrigues us, and so I'm no royal enthusiast by any stretch, but I found myself watching some of it this morning. It was more interesting to watch without commentary. There were several live feeds, and just seeing it happen without hearing anybody talking about what was happening while it was happening was interesting. Here are some things that sort of surprised me. In a good way. You hear so much about both from leftoid multicultural enthusiasts, who anti-white multicultural enthusiasts who just think the fewer white people there are, the better, and that we need to just flood Europe with as many non-white people as possible. We hear from those people a lot. Of course, they're pretty damn close to the mainstream, if not the mainstream, right now. But we also hear a lot from the other side about which is basically the rivers of blood kind of notion about unfettered immigration and the effects that it's having upon Europe. And so one side sees it as a good thing, other side sees it as a terrible thing and a tragedy and a travesty. For all of that, it's sort of easy to get caught up in a kind of hysteria. I don't want to call it hysteria because I think it's a real subject that I don't think I'm not in favor of mass immigration, not because I believe that any race is any better than any other, but simply because I don't think it's a prudent or wise or just policy for anybody of any race. I don't think. I think a more homogeneous society and culture, just in its essence, tends to be better run, higher trust, as they say, less problems, less. I'm all for helping people of every race, and I'm not for, and I don't think that people should be kicked out of where they were born either. If I don't think you have to be white to be a Westerner, temperamentally, psychologically, whatever. I'm not a racialist in that sense, but I do think that homogeneous cultures are best. So I do have some skin in the game here, is what I'm saying, even though it sounds like it might sound to some of you like I'm staking out the mushy middle on this issue, which gets a lot of people hot under the collar, and for good reason. But what I was just leading up to say with regard to this ritual that was the burial of Queen Elizabeth is I was struck by just how white it was. Like you kind of expect, you listen to all of the fear porn, and there is a certain degree of fear porn about mass immigration. I know that it's a real issue, but some who bang on about it will have you believing that it's just like you're just not going to see white people doing anything ever again, and that you're not going to see a group of white people together hanging out together ever again. And but then you watch something like the burial. What it's not the is there an official name for it? It's not a coronation. It's not a wedding. I guess it's just the burial services. Just the whole ritual of putting a monarch to rest. And it looks like England, like traditional England. There are of all the prelates who are there. I should also say it's a very Christian burial, even though England, like most of Europe, has lost much of its Christian belief. According to statistics, only 15 to 20% of people call themselves Christian in Europe. That's just a random number I'm picking up out of just sort of pulling up out of my head, but it's something like that, right? The numbers have plummeted. The sea of faith has very much receded in the continent of Europe, in most places. The exceptions like Poland, where they're still very devout. That exception proves the rule. Nevertheless, this was a very, not only a very white-looking ritual, like a lot of white faces. The young men, the strapping young men carrying the coffin. They were all white. Every single one of them was white. Most of those taking part in the procession were white. Most of those in the present, in the wherever Westminster Abbey, where the service took place, most of them were white. And most of the I guess they were the Navy representatives who were taking part in the march. Most of them were white men. There's a smattering of non-white men, and there are a few women here and there, but by and large, generally speaking, it's very, very white. And some people would say that and think, oh, terrible, too white. And I'm sure some people are saying that. I bet some people are saying just that. But for me, it was pleasantly surprising, not because I think non-white people are bad, but just because I think that England, that a nation should be able to retain its traditional heritage. And so anyway, that surprised me, and also the devotion of the service, and it was very conservative in appearance. The Anglican Church has gone off the rails. There's so much to be. I mean, I talk about alarmism, but there's also really a lot to be alarmed about with mass immigration, with people's loss of faith, with the institutions. Not both Protestant institutions and Catholic institutions in the West, and how they have devolved, how they have been drained of their essence, like what happened with Vatican II in the Catholic Church. There was a similar kind of catastrophe that has taken place amongst Anglicans, and I know that there are devout traditional Anglicans who are very displeased by everything that has happened, all of the erosion of tradition, over the course of the last 20, 30 years, whatever. But yet, nevertheless, this service is very, very traditional. The Lord's Prayer being said by everyone. I think a couple of times the Lord's Prayer was said. I didn't watch the entire thing, but I heard the Lord's Prayer said twice. So that's something. And the whoever the prelate was who was presiding over everything, whatever his position was, he was a man in his 60s, balding or bald, very serious, very traditional, and spoke of Elizabeth as a devout woman. Whether that's true or not, again, whether that's all just a smoke screen and she's really this demonic lizard person or something, or just something different from what's said. That's not so much what I'm concerned with here. What I'm talking about is strictly the appearance of things, because appearances are important. They do mean something. And when they put forth these appearances, that means something. I don't know if it says more about Elizabeth and maybe her, ultimately conservative sensibilities, that this is what she wanted. There were no women priests anywhere. I think there was the guy who was presiding, and there were a few other robed individuals who might have been priests or might have been deacons or something. There was only one woman there among them. The beautiful, the choir, the apple-cheeked young choir boys, singing beautifully through this whole thing. And again, it's very easy to get to be cynical, especially when you're talking about little boys, and so many of the things that have been both alleged and just shown to be true about the upper classes of jolly old England. But you take all of that away, peel away that cynicism, which is earned. It's earned cynicism. Don't get me wrong. I know I'm qualifying what I'm saying a lot here, but I'm trying to make it clear what my point is. This was I thought this was a very devout and very respectful and a very religiously oriented service, and specifically religiously oriented towards Christianity. And the rituals were, if not, strictly if maybe they didn't talk in, Old English. Maybe it wasn't they didn't follow the 1929 Book of Common Prayer, but still it had very traditional vibes to it. So I would have to say that upon watching what I watched of the Queen's funeral services and the ritual that attended it, it sent out, it gave out these vibes. It gave out this atmosphere of respect and reverence and tradition, and it looked like England. It looked like traditional England. So those are my thoughts about the funeral. And I know some people are just aching to come on and say something black-pilled, or say that I'm just being naive and a fool. But understand, I'm not saying this. What was represented, what was presented, is the truth or the reality of things. But it must be important in some way that they wanted to show that as their reality, instead of, just swamping us with trans people and non-white faces everywhere, and having the service be something really weird and eccentric, and having people women wearing headscarves, or all these exotic, non-traditional, non-European kind of things. You didn't see that there. So those are my thoughts on the funeral. Let me know yours. Leave them below. Thanks for watching.